Trade reports are escalating for the Boston Celtics as there is less than 1 week away until the trade deadline, and with the Celtics still having that Grant Williams traded player exception and still looking for a big time wing or possibly even some front court depth, the Celtics will probably be utilizing this traded player exception, and we'll be exploring 2 more guys that the Celtics could be looking at to bring in for this Celtics roster. All of that and more on this episode of Celtics Digest. I'm Bruce Veliz. But before we dive into this Boston Celtics content, I would like to roughly say that 78% of our viewers are not subscribed, and would greatly appreciate it if you guys hit that big old red subscribe button and join the Celtics Digest family. We want to get to our goal of 4,000 subscribers, so if you want to make sure you stay up to date on daily Boston Celtics content and coverage, hit that subscribe button as you definitely will not regret it. But let's dive into the news at hand today, so make sure to grab a snack as today's episode is going to be a jam-packed one as we dive into these Boston Celtics trade rumors and trade targets. And like I just mentioned, there are 2 more potential targets available for the Boston Celtics ahead of this trade deadline with less than 1 week away. And GM Brad Stevens is cooking some things up possibly for the Boston Celtics. First, we're going to be looking at this article from Bleacher Report that says Celtics rumors. Boston searching for front court depth ahead of the 2024 NBA trade deadline. And this is from Joseph Zucker. Now, if you guys do not know, the Boston Celtics continue to search for additional front court depth ahead of the NBA trade deadline, according to NBA insider Mark Stein. But it doesn't appear anything big is in store, though, while Stein adding the team is willing to only part with players on the most nominal contracts in any potential upcoming moves, meaning that the Boston Celtics are not willing to include any of their big name guys in any of these trades. Like I expected, obviously the starting 5 is not going to be involved as Jayson, Tatum, Jaylen Brown are their 2 future superstars. Derrick has an insane emergence with this Boston Celtics core this year, and Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis were recently acquired in trades last offseason. Guys like Al Horford, who's a big veteran, who's the only movable contract on the Boston Celtics, doesn't seem like he's going to get moved either, just because he's had such an impactful role for the Boston Celtics team, and he truly deserves to be here. Sam Hauser and Payton Pritchard are the lower end contracts on the Boston Celtics as well, but their improvement to the bench has actually really helped out this Boston Celtics core. The only problem with the Boston Celtics, like the article mentions, is a lack of front court depth. With the Boston Celtics having some injury history to Kristaps Porzingis already this season, Al Horford resting in the back-to-backs, and recently we've seen Luke Kornet out a couple of games, Neemias Queta, Oshae Brissett, and Lamar Stevens have had to step up for the Boston Celtics in recent games. And even though Neemias Queta and Oshae Brissett have shown that they do great things for the Boston Celtics, sometimes their numbers don't put out the best for the Boston Celtics, and it's looking like the Celtics could use that additional wing help or additional front court help. So we're going to be looking at 2 potential guys that the Boston Celtics could be going after, looking at this article from 98.5 The Sports Hub. If you guys don't know who that is, they're a radio station in Boston who breaks down potential moves with all the teams in Boston, and they have 2 moves that the Boston Celtics should go after for this team using the traded player exception. We want to look, it says that the Celtics have a trade chip that they have to use this month and quickly. President of Basketball Operations Brad Stevens has until the NBA trade deadline next Thursday to use what he's called a traded player exception to acquire another player before it expires. The TPE is essentially a voucher to trade for a player without having to move salary back the other way. The TPE was created after the Celtics sent Grant Williams to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for 2 second-round picks. The Celtics TPE is for $6.25 million. By rule, they can use it to acquire any player/players costing $6.3 million or less. So let's take a look at some players that could fit into the TPE and make sense as mid-season depth additions for the Boston Celtics. So like this article mentions, only can acquire guys that are combined together or individually up to $6.25 million, meaning the Celtics can't necessarily go out and get a big-time guy, but there are some guys on some cheaper contracts and cheaper deals that could realistically help out the Boston Celtics in some positions of need. The first guy we're going to be looking at that this article has talked about is Saddiq Bey. Now, I know I've mentioned Saddiq Bey on here before, and I know a lot of Celtics fans would really, really like the Boston Celtics to go after a guy in Saddiq Bey, as he's a great wing for the Atlanta Hawks. He was recently acquired to the Hawks from the Pistons last year for a bunch of second-round picks anyways. So if the Boston Celtics were to throw in their abundance of second-round picks that they acquired from this draft season this year, or that they have just stocked up, to the Atlanta Hawks for a guy in Saddiq Bey, I think the Hawks would necessarily do it. The Hawks are a team who's close to the luxury tax, and by being that, they are one of the worst teams in the NBA at 11th in the Eastern Conference. So it's not looking great for the Hawks being in money trouble, but also not performing. So the Hawks are looking to move off some of their guys. We've already seen them move off of John Collins last year, DeJounte Murray, Bogdanovich, Clint Capella. Those guys are in the rumors this year. But a guy like Saddiq Bey, who's only making roughly around $6 million, could be a guy that the Hawks don't want to extend and give a lot of money to in the future, just because they've had this emergence of Jaylen Johnson in their offseason, and they already have a guy in DeAndre Hunter, who's a pretty solid wing perimeter player as well. So moving off a guy in Saddiq Bey to the Boston Celtics could help the Celtics, as the Hawks get a couple second-round picks to help them for the future, but the Celtics get another, creative scorer on the wing position, a little bit better than Oshae Brissett and Lamar Stevens at that, can stretch the floor, be a little bit better at that. His three-point percent shooting hasn't been the greatest this year. If we want to look at his stats, we can see 12.9 points, 6.5 total rebounds, 1.5 assists, shooting 41% from the field and 30% from three. A little bit of a dip from his career high at 35%, but his free throw percentage is at 81%. And honestly, with the Atlanta Hawks, he's tasked to be more of a stretch four and be that guy to take those shots. With the Boston Celtics, I'd see him being kind of like an Al Horford-esque role, where he's going to come off the bench and he's going to shoot those shots necessarily if he's given the open opportunity. He's not going to be shot chucking and creating much of opportunities like he is with the Atlanta Hawks, and I think he'd fit into a better position with the Boston Celtics. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about Saddiq Bey. But the next guy that we're going to be diving in has a little bit more to deal with the front court aspirations that the first article was talking about, and that is a center in Dwight Powell. Now, the Dallas Mavericks have used Dwight Powell for the last couple of years, and he would fit into this Grant Williams traded player exception. He's an all-right center who's been, had some all-right seasons with the Dallas Mavericks. But with the Dallas Mavericks recently just getting Derrick Lively with their lottery pick last off-season, and him being a great performer for them, they have a little bit of a center need that they kind of are looking to get rid of in Dwight Powell, as Derrick Lively already holds that role for them. They have some, backup guys, some smaller lineups, but the Dallas Mavericks are looking to, possibly bring in some more wings and bring in some more talent. So a guy like Dwight Powell, who's in that kind of power forward center position that they're looking kind of to upgrade, could be a guy that could possibly be on the move. He's an all-right offensive center, not the greatest defensive center, and he could kind of help out with the Boston Celtics, just being, a bigger body and being, a guy who's already had NBA experience, a little bit better than Neemias Queta perhaps. But I think trading for a guy in Dwight Powell doesn't really move the needle for the Boston Celtics that much. I think we're just bringing in another body just to have another body at that point, kind of what the Celtics did with Mike Muscala last season. And even if this is what the Celtics want to go forward, it's not going to necessarily help them out in that much of a way. I think Saddiq Bey brings something that the Celtics desperately need more, and I think Neemias Queta could grow into be a better player than Dwight Powell has already looked for the Dallas Mavericks this season. So I think if the Celtics were to look to add any front court depth already, might as well just re-sign a guy in Neemias Queta, bring him onto the Boston Celtics, and let him develop and actually grow for next season, than trading for a guy in Dwight Powell who's just going to be your second or third bench center. And then after next year, what do you do when you have Luke Kornet and Neemias Queta there? Do you look to move off of him? Does he look to go somewhere else? Do you look to trade him again? It's very, very confusing in that situation. Honestly, I think both of these guys could help the Boston Celtics, but I realistically really like Saddiq Bey more as a better asset than Dwight Powell. But I want to know your guys' thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Like I mentioned, the trade deadline is less than 1 week away, and the Boston Celtics, who want to get active and want to make a move in this Eastern Conference to keep them propelled at the top of the Eastern Conference, it's looking a little bit difficult for them, but we'll have to see what they can get done. I'll let you guys know that Josh, Isaac, and I most likely will be recording a video breaking down all of our trade deadline suggestions ahead of this week as well. So if you want to make sure you stay up to date on that and more Boston Celtics content and coverage, hit that subscribe button, as you definitely will not regret it. I'm Bruce Velez. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Celtics Digest, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.